What if you get a deposit in your bank every 3 months and you didn't have to do anything extra? That is the idea behind dividend investing. And today I'm going to explain it in very, very simple terms, like I always do. Whether you're just starting out in your investment journey or you're a very seasoned pro, I want you to stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to go into details of how dividend investing can be a very, very powerful tool in your investment bucket. So let's get into it. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. When a public company is created, it can be divided into millions of tiny ownership pieces, which we're going to call shares. So I want you to think of a share like a slice of a pizza, where the whole pizza is the company, and you as the shareholder, you own just a piece, a slice of that pizza. Now, when a company earns profits, it has several choices to make. It can either reinvest those profits into the business to make even more profits in the future, or it can take a portion of that profit and distribute it to all the shareholders. Now, everyone who owns a share of this company, everyone who owns a slice of this company will get something that is called a dividend. So in simple terms, you own a share of a company, the company makes profits, you get a cut. Very simple. Now, most companies pay dividends 4 times a year. Some pay it every year, some pay it twice a year, every 6 months. But the key thing is they have to do this on a consistent basis so that the investors know what to expect. Investors like that predictability, especially when it comes to dividends. So if a company has announced they're going to make dividends quarterly, then investors know how to plan towards those dividends. Now, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever wondered why your parents or any older person you know, they just like to buy some very, very specific company shares and they just hold it for the long term? It is simply because they get dividends on a regular basis from those companies. It's not because they really, really like the companies. Some companies that are usually dividend reliable companies, you would find that some investors typically gravitate towards those companies and they hold those company shares for a very long time. Let's get back into it. Not every company pays dividends. I just want you to know that. Some companies use these dividends to accelerate their growth. Things like fast-growing companies, like tech companies, or companies that have huge cash demands that are still in their growth phase. They use their profit to grow their business. But when you have your reliable companies, the companies that are really more mature, things like your telecom companies, your pipelines, major utilities, all those companies that have been in existence for a very long time with predictable cash flows. And so if that cash flows are more predictable, these companies will find it easier to pay dividends on a more consistent basis. Here's where it gets very interesting, and here's why I actually think dividend investing is one of the powerful beginner strategies out there. Now, let's say you buy shares in a company that pays dividends every 6 months or maybe every year. You hold those shares in a brokerage account. And if you're new and if you're wondering what a brokerage account is, I'll just take a few seconds to explain. Now, a brokerage account is a very special account where you buy, sell, or hold shares. It's different from a bank account, but the only difference is you can use it to trade shares. Now, let's get back to dividend investing. So on a regular basis, you get your dividends. You didn't need to do anything. The only thing you needed to do was to research on these companies, buy their shares, and hope they perform. The company performs, they declare profit, they pay you a dividend. Now, the best part is yet to come. And the best part is this. If on a regular basis, you do not withdraw your dividends as cash, instead, you use those dividends to buy more shares in that same company. What you're actually doing is called a dividend reinvestment plan, or we can call it a DRIP. What this does for you actually is it is setting you up to receive even more dividends in the future. Now, let's make an example out of this. Imagine a company that pays $50 in dividends. Let's say that company shares sells for $10 a piece. Now you've gotten $50 in dividends. Instead of taking your $50 as cash, you chose to buy more shares at $10 a piece. That means you now have 5 more shares. So your number of shares has increased by 5. The next time the company pays another set of dividends, you buy even more shares. And so when you zoom out over the long term, maybe over 5-10 years, with a consistent drip, you will find that you've increased the number of shares you have without even bringing extra money from your pocket. Now, this is why this strategy, the dividend reinvestment strategy, is so powerful and is quite beneficial for beginner investors. Another reason to like dividend investing is the tax benefit on it. And as a Canadian investor, you can take advantage of the tax benefits on dividend investing. Now, the simplest way to think about it is this. The taxes on dividend income from Canadian companies is lower than the taxes on your regular paycheck or lower than the taxes on your regular income. And that is because of something called a dividend tax credit, which is a rule in the Canadian tax system that recognizes that you're earning income from a Canadian company that has already paid corporate tax. So you're not really going to be taxed twice at full rate. In practice, it simply means that $1 of dividend income is actually worth more than $1 of regular income. So take that away. One very common question that I get a lot from people who want to do dividend investing is they often ask, where should I hold these shares that pay dividends? And for Canadian purposes, we have the TFSA, we have the RRSP, we also have the FHSA, and there are other non-registered investment accounts. Now, if you want to hold shares for dividend earning purposes, the first one that I would recommend you use is the TFSA. And what that simply means is a tax-free savings account. In simple terms, anything you hold in a TFSA grows without any tax implications. That means your share valuation, your share growth, the dividends you earn in a TFSA, you're not going to pay any single taxes on it. So if you're thinking of holding stocks or shares for dividend purposes, use your TFSA as the good starting point. Another thing you can use is your tax registered accounts, things like your FHSA or RRSP. Now, the way these work, especially your RRSP works on the tax deferred basis. What that simply means is you don't pay any taxes now, but when you withdraw from this account, you get to pay those taxes on it. And the assumption is when you're withdrawing at a much later day, you will be in a lower tax bracket. So you can use your FHSA or your RRSP as the next step for holding your dividend investments. But if you don't have any more room in your TFSA or your RRSP, you can also use a non-registered account to hold your dividend shares. But in this case, the dividend tax credit is even more powerful in a non-registered account. Remember the dividend tax credit we talked about earlier now is going to come into play. But just to be clear, that tax credit is for monies held outside your TFSA or your RSP. All right, my expectation by now is you understand dividends, you understand the passive income angle, and you also understand the tax benefits and the account options to use to hold these shares that pay you good dividends. Now, another question that would typically come up at this time is how to get started. Like, how do you actually start buying the shares that pay you dividends? First is you need to open a brokerage account. So there are several platforms that you can use to open a brokerage account. You can either use Wealthsimple, you can use Questrade, or you can use any of the financial institutions that allow you open a brokerage account. So preferably go for one that has a zero trade commissions or that has very, very low transaction fees in buying shares so that you don't lose too much money as you trade. The second thing you should do is, this is the most important part. Actually, the second point, very important, and I'll tell you what it is. You need to do your research. So research on companies or even ETFs that pay dividends on a consistent basis. You cannot skip research. In investing, research is like 80 or 90% of the work. So research is important. So research on companies that have good performance history, companies that have good dividend payment history, and buy those companies or buy those ETFs into your brokerage account. Now, the third thing is where things start to crumble, and that is consistency. Without consistency, without consistently investing in these companies or in these ETFs, you're not going to accumulate those shares that would grow over a long period of time. So you need to invest on a regular basis. So set up automatic investments so that you can keep amassing these shares and keep increasing the amount of dividends you can earn from having a large amount of shares. And fourth, think long term. So dividend investing is not something you should do for 3 months and just forget about it. Dividend investing is a long-term play. So if you are coming in with a mindset of doing this for just 1 year, you're already going to fail. So have a mindset of 5, 10, 20 years as your investment horizon for dividend investing. All right, if you've been watching to this point, you probably get the message by now, and I'll just do a quick recap just in case you forgot any part along the way. Now, shares, they are pieces of a company's ownership. They are slices of the company's pizza. And if you own a share in the company, if you own stocks in a company, you actually own a slice of that company. And dividends are paid based on how many shares you own in the company. So if a company has announced $100 million in dividend payouts, if you own 2 shares, they will divide the 100 million by the total amount of shares that exist, and everything comes one apiece, one per share. Now, if you're looking to go into dividend investing, the suggestion is use your TFSA first because of the tax-free benefits on your TFSA. Now, you can use the dividend reinvestment method to buy more shares with the dividends you earned to increase the total number of shares you have and set yourself to receive even more dividends in the future. And finally, know that your dividend investing plan is a long-term strategy. Do not come into it expecting magic in the next 3 months. Have a long-term mindset with investing. So if you like this video and if you want to see more content from me, please drop a like and subscribe to my channel. I make great videos which I post every single week. And I'm also trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end of December 2026. So subscribe to my channel and tell somebody about me, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good week.